So I figured for just a time agnostic episode, since as we're recording, we're doing a couple to allot for some real life interrupts instead of recording each week for a couple of weeks here. Um,
Yeah,
there were just some topics that would be fun to go back and visit, and one that I haven't mentioned that just really became a frustration today, and
your
see kind of
finger.
where it goes. So no, the finger is actually just an update in general. So today, I did finally go see a medical professional just to confirm. Probably should have done so sooner, if I'm being honest. But the nice thing is, the doctor told me that honestly, if you had come sooner, I'd tell you the same thing I'm telling you today. Like I think you took the decision making process the appropriate way, in that it was seeming to get better. You did not have limitations on movement other than from swelling before you came to visit. And the positive news out of the visit is that there is nothing worse than what was expected. It's just going to take some time for the finger to heal. And honestly, it was nice just to hear that, yeah, everything looks good. Showing on x rays, this is why it's uh, going to take a while, and that honestly, the extremities like that, these particular joints in the fingers do not like trauma in the first place. And so when some sort of traumatic experience is encountered, it takes a long time for them to heal. And it was reassuring to hear that.
You're also not a kid anymore. You're in your 40s.
Yeah.
I saw that. Like I'm convinced that my injured finger will never be the same. Like I can, like it's functional. Like I don't have any. Like I can. I think I don't know if I have full functionality. Like I haven't tried bouldering since I've injured it, but I can climb. But I can hold my hand out and I can see. Yes, that is.
Yeah. So the doctor that I saw today, I told him my introduction to the issue was, honestly, I'm at a point where I just want to confirm whether I'm just old, and so this is taking a while, or if there's something that's not quite right and needs some sort of intervention. And he laughed a little bit and said, it could be a bit of both, but let's take a look. And during the course of the conversation, most of the things that kind of came back, that the kind of key points that we kept hitting on, were it's never going to be exactly the same. This type of injury cannot be 100% repaired in a way that would make it identical to pre-injury state. It will always be more likely to be dislocated again, because there's a little piece in front of that joint that has now been broken off the adjacent bone that is just going to sit there. And so the enough force is going to be able to dislocate that finger easier than it would if it had not been dislocated already. All of that should be fairly common sense. Like if you've ever dealt with anything dislocated, that's the typical answer. But seeing why on an X-ray and having it explained like that helped. It was nice to be reassured that yes, it looks completely normal, like I would expect after this type of injury. Showing up on the X-ray as far as this little piece that you see right here, this is why this is normal, and you can see that the surrounding soft tissue is what's swollen. There's nothing wrong with like the location of the bones. The bones all look good. It's just the soft tissue that's obviously suffered some sort of experience that has created inflammation and swelling, and that's what you're technically treating at this point. And reassurance that it could take 6 months or longer for it to get to whatever state it will be in post injury that would be considered the new normal. And we're just over a month into, well, maybe a month and a half into my healing and recovery timeline. And it's not like I'm being gentle with it. Like I am still taping it up and going to jujitsu classes and rowing and whatever else I want to do. Like all of my activities have not abated as a result of this injury. So I know I'm also, in addition to trying to allow it to heal and recover, I'm not giving it uninterrupted healing and recovery time. And so, in going through all of that, it was just good to hear reassurance and to see visually with the X-rays that everything's in the right place. This is very much just you have to give it time and see kind of where it lands type thing.
I was thinking about. Well, I'm glad I'm glad it's not causing you any pain, and it's not restricting you from your activities. But I was thinking about the whole growing older thing, and shit, man, like this got stuck in my head early on in my 20s. My ex's father said, this is what really frightened me. He said that he could tell he was starting to lose his strength around the time he turned 50. And then I remember saying something like that to a former mutual coworker of ours, Carl from the Apple store, and he said, "Yeah, it was about he's like I could start to feel my strength wane at 50, around my early 50s." I'm like, in my 20s, I was like, "Shoot, that's scary." And then in my mid 30s, I'm like, "Man, I have a decade and a half left before that starts to happen." And now I'm like less than a decade away from that, and I'm like, "Whew, it is quickly approaching." I wasn't thinking about the whole my hair. Like I always hate saying this because I feel like I don't look like I have thinning hair, but I definitely have thinning hair. I don't have a receding hairline, but I have thinning hair, and that was evident.
I have to laugh only because
I know
we have such different experiences. But I know my hair is ridiculously thin from a starting point genetically. We have very different starting points with regard to what would be considered thinning hair.
Right.
And I reached the thinning hair point in middle school.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say when I up until my mid 30s, it was like I'd get in the shower, turn the shower on, and I'm not even having long hair. It's like it would take a few seconds for the water to get from the top of my hair to my scalp, and now it's just like straight away. And I guess that's what you were experiencing in middle school and beyond.
Yeah, that's been my entire lifetime experience.
Right. And so I truly feel kind of like a shithead saying that. Especially, I once said it to a table full of bald men, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, guys."
I will say, there is a big difference between choosing to be a bald man, like I have done over the past few years, and not choosing it. If you don't choose it, that can be a difficult experience. But when you choose to just shave it off and just embrace it and enjoy the benefits that come with not having to deal with hair, it actually is a fun and enjoyable experience. So it does depend on the nature of the baldness.
Well, I remember saying this at a table, and it was like, I think it was 3 guys, and they all were exhibiting, typical male pattern baldness for men in their late 40s, mid to late 40s, and early 50s. And I'm just like, they all had good looking heads. I mean, they weren't unattractive people. It was just like, I get, I think about Red from that 70s show, and there's like a episode where he dreams about having a head full of hair, and I was like, I guess that would be something that you dream about. But I will say, I have dreamt my whole life to not have back hair, so there's that.
That's an excellent way to pivot that conversation. The one add-on that I would put is that it's so funny thinking about how different individuals' experiences are with regard to body hair as a whole, right? So me personally, I cannot grow thick hair. Doesn't matter what portion of the body we're talking about. My hair is thin. And so if you were to see me and look at my arms, for example, it's just light, thin hair. And it's very much a genetic component of how we navigate life in general, right? Like, so
Yeah.
for me, I will never be concerned about thick, uncomfortable patches of hair. Whereas, like, your comment about the back hair, you will have or have had concerns about uncomfortable patches of thick hair, and it's something that I just can't wrap my head around because I have never experienced it. And I find the fact that even on a physical level, we can have those types of diverse experiences that affect behaviors in general and how we navigate society to be one of the most fascinating things about the human experience.
Yeah. I can remember being maybe 11 years old and wishing that I had underarm hair. I remember one summer hanging out at the baseball fields, and there's this kid who was like 15. I was 11. There's this kid who was 15, and he's running around without his shirt on, and he had pits full of hair. And I'm like, at this point now, I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm not. It's not gross, but it's just like it's whatever. Like, I don't care. But I just remember being an 11-year-old and like that's what I wanted. And then because it was like part of it was like a symbol of like I think really it was symbolic of growing up. And being born a relatively having a relatively hairless body, it was quite a shock to me when I started getting hair, more hair than I was wanting. And I was 15 years old when I was like, oh, I actually have back hair. I'm like like my dad and my uncles. I am going to be a hairy person. And so yeah, that was like it didn't stop. Like I realized it the summer I was 15, and it was the first swim party of the year, and I was putting on my swim trunks to go swimming at my friend's house, and then I was like, oh, what? I caught a glimpse of my back in the mirror, and I was like, what's that? And I'm like, oh no. Because like my dad and my uncles, they were, I grew up with them, they were hairy, but I was hairless. And then I was not. So
Puberty's a bitch.
yeah, I know, right? It's no big deal like when it's like in all the normal places for living in a society with what, more or less, because it's like you have Caucasian Europeans in this country mostly. They're relatively hairless. You have folks of Latin descent. They're relatively hairless. You have African Americans. They're relatively hairless. They just have like the standard beard, underarm, sometimes chest hair. And then it's like, oh, hey, guess what? Your dad's Middle Eastern. And you know what? It's not all Middle Easterners. I've got cousins that don't have as much body hair as me.
I think it's funny. Well, I mean, I kind of already said that, I guess, but like there are so many different subsets of groups of people that experience a increase in hairiness as opposed to, I'd say probably 60-70% of the world. Like it feels like it's overwhelmingly proportional to those who are not as hairy, but it's a misnomer because typically those people who are hairier just aren't as public about it, I think. Like I don't know where we reached this point where hairiness was something to hide. That maybe that would be a good research project, but I feel like it coincided with a number of the different views on what the female body should or shouldn't be.
That's exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah, and then it ended up translating into what should or shouldn't be visible, from a male's perspective. But like, think about something as simple as chest hair, right? Sean Connery had a fairly hairy chest.
Mm-hmm.
Many people found that relatively offensive, and many people find that to be the epitome of what defines male physique, right?
Masculinity.
It wasn't until fairly recent history that you started seeing hairless, chiseled front viewpoints with regard to how the male body is portrayed in cinema. And then that was also the origination of the quote unquote dad bod as opposed to the six pack, right? Like there's a constant battle. And instead of it being a battle, if we quit trying to say one thing is best or ideal and started accepting the fact that, you know what, we come in a lot of different shapes and sizes,
They
and
should
there's
all be
going to be
celebrated.
diversity. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons, not to completely derail the conversation, but I'm going to do it anyway. Um, it's one of the reasons I really appreciate nudist philosophies with
Mm-hmm.
regard to the people who partake in those activities. Like if you go to a nudist beach or a nudist colony or commune, I don't know exactly the terminology, but there's very much an embracing of diverse body types and appearances and everything else that honestly should be the norm. And I don't understand why we can't break that particular mold.
I think I think it's amazing what's happened in the last 10 to 20 years with women's body types, because you know it all boils down to what can we sell you. If we tell women that they shouldn't be hairy, then we can sell them all sorts of products to make their bodies not hairy. And it's even to the point. I'll come back to this maybe, but it's there were a select group of men who decided this is how women should look, and they were able to control that. And now women, we have decades of and generations of women who say that we should look like this. And for the longest time, it was always slim, and to the point where in the '90s, the the look that people were going for was called heroin chic. It's like, we want you to look like you're strung out on a a deadly drug, a deadly a deadly drug,
Oh, with
and
big poofy hair.
right. But then in the aughts and the last couple of decades, um, that was it was taken it wasn't we didn't the pendulum didn't swing so far to say that skinny women are ugly and curvy women are in, but we started to focus on, yes, if you are a curvy woman, if you've got curves, that's attractive. And guess what? Women who have smaller curves, that's attractive. And we're going to start to try to celebrate all body types. And so that's been good. I think overall it's been really good. But what I found really interesting, and this is something that I found as I was during the few years that I was single, and it's like millennial women, um, almost most, and so this is totally anecdotal, but a lot of millennial women were compelled to remove all the hair from their bodies from the neck down, everywhere. Like even people, there's a great joke in an Adam Sandler movie called Bulletproof, where he looks at he's staying the night. I think he's what's the word when a police officer has someone detained, but they're trying to get him from one location to the other, whatever that is. He Adam Sandler's character is being detained, and I think it's Damon Wayans that I think it's one of the Wayans brothers that's got him, and they're in a hotel, and he's watching pornography, and he goes, "Do you know how you know it's '70s porn?" He says, "Even the dicks have sideburns." So, I just remember how pornography influenced women from our generation to feel compelled to remove all the hair from their bodies, such that now if you were to say you're liberated, you don't have to do that. You can do whatever you want. They still do it because they were conditioned at the right age to do that. And it's now younger women from Gen Z who are now okay with being hairier.
It's This is one of those areas that I find fascinating.
Yeah, right.
So, God, there's just so much to unpack. Um, Hair is a very tricky thing, right? So there's a there's a conversation about, we have people removing hair from this much in their body. They're trying to be more childlike, maybe, or there's a narrative that tries to spin it in a way that is not appropriate, that I do find fascinating, that I want to call out as being something that is an interesting byproduct of these choices. And that's kind of all the time I want to give it, because it's stupid and shouldn't exist. But I want to acknowledge that it's there, because this is such a intimately individualistic perspective that we're trying to apply to a wide swath of society, that I find it hilarious to begin with. Like the entire concept is just so ridiculously out of the park, asinine as a starting point, that I find it ridiculous that it gains traction. And yet at the same time, I find it fascinating that we then rally around this concept, or this activity from a societal standpoint as accepted or unaccepted. And I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's such an abstract kind of dichotomy of thoughts. But if to give a more explicit example, if you take a individual who is elected to remove all hair, male or female, doesn't matter, from say neck down, and so the thought is that they have chosen to pursue smooth skin as a preference. Some people find that inherently attractive. Some people find that inherently a turnoff. It's fine. You have differing opinions. Where the issue comes up that I just find fascinating to hear people talk about is trying to translate that to an attempt to be younger or older than a specific age, because that doesn't come into play at all. Like it's not like you're going to mistake a 30-year-old who has chosen to be smooth from the neck down for a 10-year-old. Like that's not the conversation. Um, but at the same time, from a mental disability perspective, you could certainly see the parallels between someone who is attracted to underage individuals and desiring a partner who chose to remove all hair as being a thing. Like I feel like I'm all over the place with this particular thing, but it's
Yeah.
so interesting a topic because of the different nuances that you could have discussing said topic, that it's tough to narrow it down to, is this a personal preference thing, or is it a societal influence kind of issue, or is it a manifestation of a problem kind of thing? And that's kind of what I want to get to, right? There's these three areas that you think about, and they're all describing the same one behavior. And depending on who you talk to, you could classify it in any of these three. And that's what makes this such a kind of interesting topic that doesn't have a good track record for understanding why we have these different trajectories. Does that kind of maybe narrow it down to a point that makes sense?
Yeah. No, it
I
does.
and it's and full, like, backing up, full transparency, disclosure, this is what makes a social or behavioral type of person line of inquiry absolutely mad, trying to figure out which way do I take the line of questioning, because it's all of these can fit, all of these have merit, and all of these have very different ramifications for explaining behavior, and all of them are intertwined. I mean, you can't measure one without having some level of the other.
Yeah,
And I don't think that's even where we were going with the conversation. It just, that's what fascinates me about the hair topic specifically.
no, so I was gonna say the thing that I found, and it's so from personal anecdotal experience, it's been uh, women that are in their 30s and 40s, um, experienced, I guess, women who were that were teenagers when internet porn became available to most everyone. So that'd be the teenagers in the late 90s, early 2000s, or even like mid 90s to early 2000s. Around that time in pornography, we'll just use the term fully shaved became a thing. And it became it became incredibly prominent, to the extent that it found its way in popular culture. I can remember watching a show from the BBC, and two guys were like, this guy was going to break up with his girlfriend, but it turned out that she used the tactic of being fully shaved to keep him on the line just a little longer. And I can remember like this, and it had nothing to do with like someone looking more childlike, but rather it's like, oh, this is going to feel different. And so it's to the extent where like now, like when I was in my mid 30s, talking to some people about it, it was like, yeah, I feel dirty if I allow hair to grow in these parts of my body. Like it becomes such a way of life. It was like, it even got to the point where it's like, you didn't even have, it wasn't even from boyfriends pressuring girlfriends or husbands pressuring wives to do this, but it was just like, oh, this girl, all my girlfriends do it, so I'm going to do it too. It's like, it just became part of the culture. And I was reading about it, like, where people have actually done proper surveys, and, you'd actually, actually gathered, had a much higher in than I did. And it is a thing in the culture of people, born in the late 70s and early, I'd say even through the early to mid 90s, like a whole generation of people that came to this expectation. And even to the extent, like I told you, like it's made its way to pop culture. I remember the show Californication with David Duchovny. His character kept commenting about like he was a womanizer, and he slept with a lot of women, and every once in a while, he'd there's one episode where he slept with a woman who he was like, you have a glorious bush, and he loved on it, and he thought it was amazing because it was like, I never see these anymore. And then there was another quote from that show where he talked about, I love this pro-sex femininity, but can someone just grow a bush for me? And so it was, you can tell, I feel like you can tell, like when the writers are like, they have a message to put out there in the world because it keeps showing up in a show. But yeah, it's a thing. And now there are articles that are being written about how hair is coming back, and body hair is coming back, and I think even now, like I think the 70s are, I was alluding to how body hair was notorious in pornography in the 70s. It's even getting to the point now where it's more mainstream for women to have, well, not mainstream is the wrong word, but it is now not uncommon to see a woman out in public wearing a sleeveless shirt and has unshaved underarms. And the great thing about it is I don't see people shaming women for doing that. And it should be choice. It's terrible that our society has told you you have to look this certain way, and it would be a lot better if our society says, you know what, you can look whatever way that you want, and no matter what way you look, we're going to appreciate you for who you are. We're going to appreciate your physical beauty as it is, no matter what it is, and we're going to appreciate you for more than your physical beauty. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.